I've had a viewer request, and that was how to arrange flowers in a Fenton glass basket. Of course, this isn't a piece of Fenton. If you love all things flower arranging with lots of charity shop shopping and a little bit of crafting thrown in too, you're in the right place, and I would love it if you would consider subscribing to my channel. All you need to do is to tap the red button marked subscribe, and that means next time you open the YouTube app on your phone, your tablet or your computer, one of my videos will be waiting for you. Now, to be honest, I struggled here in my corner of the southeast of England to find a glass basket. And I found this one at a recent charity shop adventure when I went out with friends to Tenterden, Hastings and Eastbourne for a weekend extravaganza of charity shop shopping. I haven't made a video about that yet, but look out for one in the future. And I came across this little container. It cost me a whopping £5. I thought it was madly overpriced, and I would have preferred to have paid £2, £2.50. Now, if you know anything about Fenton, let me know in the comments. But from what I've seen on my YouTube watching, is it's normally a coloured glass, perhaps with some opalescence around the side, perhaps even a bit more of a frilly rim to it. Let me know in the comments if I've got the right idea. So I've got my container. I need to pick some flowers, and I'm going to see whether I can make a pretty arrangement using the limited number of flowers I've got in my garden. You could, of course, go to the supermarket and buy flowers there, but just to bear in mind how big your container is. Mine is quite small. It fits into the palm of my hand, so I don't need really long, tall or big flowers. Everything needs to be quite small scale so it fits in with the size of the basket. Now, what are you going to get your flowers to sit in? You could use flower foam, although I would caution against it. It's a single-use plastic and it's very harmful to the environment. For today's project, I'm going to go foam-free and use some chicken wire. Now, to get on with your arrangement, you'll need a bit of flower arranging equipment to hand. A pair of sharp scissors. The ones in your kitchen drawer will be just fine, but if you are going to take up flower arranging as a hobby, I recommend getting a sturdy pair of scissors like this. And if you're interested in sourcing them, I'll leave a link to them in the description underneath this video. I've also got myself some chicken wire. Now, this was a lucky find. I happened to find some in the charity shop, but you can get this either online or you'll need to go to your local garden centre or nursery and see whether they have it there. Sometimes they sell it by the metre, and the one I've got is metal. It isn't plastic coated. It's got holes in it that I can get 3 fingers through, and it's quite thin wire so I can easily manipulate it in my hand. And of course, it's really sharp, so just be careful that you don't get overexcited with scrunching your wire up and then discovering you've cut yourself. I'm pretty sure I could cut my chicken wire using my floristry scissors. If you take the wire right down to the base here, there's a special bit of the scissors that's handy for cutting wires. But if that's too much for kitchen scissors, you might want a pair of wire cutters. And then to hold my chicken wire in place, slung over my wrist, I've got some pot tape, traditional green, and a clear pot tape. Either or is just fine, and if you don't want to use tape, you could always use a piece of string to hold your chicken wire firmly in place. I'm not making things easy for myself here because my little glass basket is quite small, so I'm not going to use much chicken wire at all. Right then, I think I'm going to go for approximately, 10 centimetres wide? And experience tells me I can cut this chicken wire using my floristry scissors. You could, of course, just scrunch this up, but I like to do a little zigzag fold with my chicken wire. The idea is you want to get layers into it. So I've got a bottom layer, a middle layer here, and then the top layer on the top. And then using these cut ends, I'm going to twist them together so I end up with a sort of pillow of chicken wire. Taking care not to cut myself on the sharp ends. Twisting them together and then bending them so they sit inside the little pillow chicken wire rather than on the outside edge where they might hurt me and scratch my container. That's one side sewn up, and then the other side. Doing more of a wrapping motion here rather than twisting because I haven't got much cut end to play with. So a flat squash section of wire, but if I pull those two outer edges, I can open it out so it becomes more three-dimensional. Must remember to take my price tag off here. And then squish the chicken wire in to fit. You can see here that it's wanting to bounce out, and that's when you might need to use your pop tape to hold it in place. I prefer using a piece of string. So what I like to do is find the halfway point of my string, I loop it around the handle and thread the other end through and pull to secure. Put my piece of chicken wire in, and then I'm just going to take the individual strands of my string and just thread them through the top surface of the chicken wire. Just means that you've got more security and you can hold the chicken wire in place. Put it nice and securely. And then I wrap it, cross over the strings at the base of the other handle, and then I tie a knot on the inside, because you're going to end up with two little pieces of string where you cut the ends off, and you don't want those showing, sticking out from the side of your basket. And there you have your chicken wire firmly attached. And that's your mechanics done. You've put in your chicken wire to hold your flowers securely in place. The next thing you need to think about is what flowers you're going to use. So as I said at the beginning of the video, don't go too large, and in fact you won't need many flowers at all. And if you're picking from your own garden, just be a little bit mindful and don't go crazy picking everything in sight. I like to use some greenery in all my flower arrangements, so I'm thinking about having a little bit of greenery that come out on this side and the other side, perhaps a little bit coming out either side of the handles, and a little sprig in the middle too. It always reminds me a little bit of the Union Jack when I make arrangements in this kind of container, with a cross in the middle and then the diagonal crosses too. From my garden, I've decided to pick some feverfew. It hasn't got flowers on it yet, but I did like its lovely, fresh, lime green foliage. And then to complement that, with a different shape, a different form to the leaves, I've picked some lemon balm, and keeping to the herby theme, I've got some rosemary too. And in terms of flowers, I've stuck with a purple palette. I thought the purple and the bright yellowy greens were a great colour combination. So I've gone for the native geraniums, Ericium, which is the perpetual wallflower. I've picked a little bit of heather, which combines that limey green foliage and the purple flowers. And last but not least, some of the flower heads from the chives. We have actually got ornamental alliums in the garden, but their heads are just way too big. Because I've picked my flowers and greenery from the garden, I'm going to give them a little bit of a pep by placing their stems in boiling water for about 10 seconds or so. The reason I do this is because I want to encourage water uptake so my flowers don't wilt. But additionally, you'll find that at this time of the year, and I'm filming in the middle of May, there's probably another 4 weeks until your greenery, your foliage, has hardened off. And there's nothing worse if you've picked flowers and greenery from your garden and then discover they're wilting in your vase just a few days later. So my flowers have been resting and taking up water for a little while. I've got my mechanics all sorted out. My chicken wire is quite firmly secure in my little glass basket. Then I need to remember to add fresh water to keep my flowers alive. You just need to be a little bit careful at this stage. I'm making my flower arrangement on my kitchen table, but I'm not going to be keeping my flowers here. I'm probably going to put them in my living room so I can enjoy them. So I will need to be really careful as I carry them through the house because I don't want to spill water anywhere. It might actually be easier if I put these on a tray and very formally carried them through the doorways. I'm going to start off with my greenery first. I like to create a sort of sketch outline so I can see how big my arrangement's going to be in terms of the length, the width and the height. Now the convention is when you're arranging flowers in a basket that you want to keep the handle as a decorative item, which means your flowers need to sit quite low underneath the handle. I would never advise lifting a glass vase by its handle. I always want to be a little bit more secure, so I would carry it by the base, but you just want to give that sensation that you could lift your basket of flowers up if you wanted to. I think I'm going to go in with my feverfew first. So it's got this lovely, almost an arching tip at this end, and before I cut it to length, I'm going to hold it up and measure it against my container and see how far I want the stems to extend. You know, I could make something really huge, but it's not going to fit the scale of the basket really. I'm going to come in a little bit shorter. So I'll cut once, take off any leaves that will sit inside the water. You don't want those rotting. And then gently add my stem in. And when you're happy with the length, you can take your second piece of greenery, measure it up against the first, and that'll be perfect for the other side. And then you've got these little bits left. Well, don't throw them away. You can recut them and use those towards the centre of your arrangement. And you can see how quickly the chicken wire is disguised and your basket will start to fill out. It's always nice to add 2 or 3 contrasting pieces of greenery just so it adds textural and visual interest, something to feast your eyes on. Add in a little bit of lemon balm in the gaps, perhaps thinking about filling up here, here, here and here, almost like in a diagonal cross, and then come back in with my sprigs of rosemary. And by putting this piece of lemon balm in here, I'll start to cover up that piece of string where I did my knot. It won't be quite so visually intrusive. It smells absolutely lovely. Fresh, lemony scent. And can you see how this rosemary is going to contrast with the other pieces of greenery? So I've taken off the lower leaves and I'm going to follow the pattern I created originally, going one piece at either end of the basket, just being gentle so I don't dislodge anything. And then a piece out towards the side. What I'm trying to do is to get my pieces of greenery to curve out across the edges of the basket, as if they're melting into the tabletop, rather than looking as if the wind has blown them upright. There's a contrast in colour and a contrast in form or shape and a contrast in texture too. And this is what my arrangement looks like so far with just the greenery added. So I'm trying to make sure everything radiates out from the centre of the basket. You can still see that piece of string though. So perhaps I'll make that the back of the basket and display it with the best side facing outwards. I'm going to add in my Ericium next to my perpetual wallflower. I've picked 3 stems, the idea being to put one at that side, one at that side, and have this one towards the middle. So I'm holding it up against the container so I can see how short I need to cut. And if in doubt, cut long first, and then you can always take a little bit off the length. But of course, if you cut it too short, you can't add anything else in. Just sliding that in, top there, so that's resting very near that last piece of rosemary I added. And I'm going to cut this centre one quite short, so it just sits below the handle. So I've got a line here, a line where the handle is. Next I'm going to think about creating a diagonal from here to here, and another one from here to here. Basically filling in the gaps around the edge. And I think perhaps my native geranium will be a good filler here. The flowers have started to fade here, but I do think that the seed heads are a very interesting shape. So when you're doing your flower arrangement, you don't actually always need to be adding flowers in. It could be seed heads and all sorts of things. Can you see that I've put 4 stems of the native geranium in, sort of squaring off my arrangement? So I'm going to come back in with some extra stems and place them towards the centre of the arrangement, just so it has more of a flowing look to it. I think I might separate out those heads. Just looked a bit too big, put in as one stem. So I've put one in there, and I'll go diagonally with one here. And I've just got enough to repeat the same thing on the other diagonal. One tucked down low there, and repeated on the other side of the basket. And my little chives next. I'm going to put those through the arrangement wherever I can see a gap. And this one with the arched head, I'm going to rotate it so it looks like it's coming out at the edge of the vase. And then for my last little bit, I've cut it, so I'm going to use it. This is my this is my heather. Again, poking it in, or I can see a gap, but making sure I spread it out evenly so it's not all on one side. I've got 3 pieces this side of the handle, creating a little triangle here. So I'll put 3 pieces on the other side of the handle. Just making sure it locks into place. And of course you'll need to make sure you've put enough water in your container, all of your flower stems, of course somewhere to drink. So I've gone 3 this side and 3 that side, but don't stick to the rules. If you've got a gap and you've got a bit more flower or foliage, add it in. Now, if you decide to follow along and make your own arrangement in a glass basket, I'd love to see how you get on. And don't forget to post a picture in my free Facebook group, Flower Start World. I'll leave a link to it in the description underneath this video. So hopefully, as I twist the container around, you can't see my mechanics, the chicken wire inside the vase, and you can't actually see the string where I tied the chicken wire in place at the base of the handles. All I need to do is to keep an eye on the waterline there and just top it up every few days. And I reckon this arrangement will last a week. And if it doesn't, I'll be pulling out the dead bits and putting some freshly cut flowers in to hide the gaps. Now, if this has whetted your appetite for a bit of flower arranging, why don't you join my monthly online flower arranging club? You do that by becoming a member of my YouTube channel. It means you get early access to my Monday uploads, which you can watch advert free, and free access to my online flower arranging class, and you can watch the videos again and again. Well, that's all from me for now, and I'll see you again next time. Don't forget to show me your flower arrangements. I'd love to see them.